All right, it's Thursday, April 11th. Here in Michigan, it's raining still, but I have to be happy that it's not snowing. I hope everybody had a great opportunity to see the eclipse for those that were in the pathway. It was pretty cool to I was in Indianapolis and it was we got the 100%, so it was great. And I know a lot of people, even in Michigan, I think they had like 96% full eclipse. So this is Sue Peterson. It's great to have you all with us tonight. For those of you that take care of your taxes, you got what, 4 days to get them in, or is there an extension this year for some reason?
No, not this year.
Not this year, is it? Because I think it's a
Only if you file, then you have till October 15th.
oh, got it. Okay. But I read something where there was in fact I got it in the mail that I could get an extension because of weather and storm and delays or something. I'm like, okay, I don't know what part hit Michigan, but it wasn't in my area. So I'm very excited tonight to welcome back to our program, to Voices of Service, a young lady who is actually was born into Kiwanis, I guess is the best way to put it. Her mom and dad, Marcia and David, are on the call with us tonight watching, but she was very active in the Michigan district of Circle K and Key Club and everything that else goes on, and traveled with mom and dad a lot of places. And it's great to have someone that understands that. I do want to acknowledge that she is wearing her Hickson today. She has her pin on her jacket as a sign and a symbol of the work that we do in Kiwanis. Rev Tura Foster Gillespie. Tura is the founder of Teaching Cultural Compassion. And we have talked a couple times about, she's very involved in books and literacy and reading. So I asked her to come on. I know that a lot of clubs are picking up into books, and it's that time of year with I read the other day he had bought several thousand books to give away to their community. So perfect opportunity. And for those of us that are able to stay throughout the program, we will be stopping the recording later in the program because she's actually going to read us a picture book. So we thought that would be a fun opportunity, but we can't record it. So we'll be turning off the recording then, but we'll make the rest of this program available to you at that time. So with no further ado, the floor is yours, Tura.
Hello, everybody. As Sue said, I'm Tura Foster Gillespie, and my pronouns are she, her, and hers. And I live just outside of the Washington, D.C. area on the ancestral lands of the Piscataway and Conoy peoples. So I just wanted to start with that. And then I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Hopefully, whoop. Great. Can you all see it? No. What did I not do? Oops. There we go.
There we go.
Better.
There we go. Perfect.
All right. So tonight, Sue asked me if I would talk a little bit about some child literacy statistics and what we can do to help out. So I'm going to jump right in with some stats for you. These are some really tough ones to hear. Students who are behind typically make only 1 year's worth of progress at each grade level. So if you're starting behind, you're staying behind most of the time. So if you look at the right side of your screen, 34% of children entering kindergarten lack the basic skills to learn how to read. And by fourth grade, 67% of our kids are reading below their grade level, which then translates to 37% of high school graduates. That's only 37% who are above their reading level by the time they graduate high school. So that whole, if you are a little bit behind, you end up staying behind. 80% of children living in economically disadvantaged communities will lose reading skills over summer break due to lack of access to books and other resources. That's a piece we're going to keep talking about later. But I also wanted to point out that ethnicity also ends up being a factor. 52% of Black fourth graders and 45% of Hispanic fourth graders score below the basic reading levels compared to only 23% or so of white students. So I would like for you all to close your eyes for just a moment and imagine back to being a fourth grader. and think to yourself, if you can, imagine being a fourth grader if you can't remember. Think about the books that you read and think about the books that you saw. And imagine for a moment if you made it all the way to fourth grade and never saw somebody who looked like you in a book that you read, or in your library, there were very few books with pictures of kids who looked like you on the cover. How much more excited are we to read a book when we can connect with that main character? So you can open your eyes if you haven't already. So I just wanted to point out that some of the reasoning that some of these kids aren't reading as much is because they don't see themselves. So here is the Cooperative Children's Book Center at the University of Wisconsin puts this together every year. They intake thousands and thousands of the picture books that are picture books, middle grade and YA. So really K-12, well, pre-K to 12. And they just keep the statistics of what is being published in the United States. And as you can see, 28% of books featured a white main character, 36% featured an animal or an object, but no human main character. And I would just like to point out that as much as every kid can connect with that animal or that crayon or bulldozer, that still doesn't help kids who are in the minority see themselves in the book. So those, as much as they are in a nice level playing field, those don't increase the representation of the other demographics. So you see that 12%, I know it's really small on your screen, so 12% are feature Black or African diaspora main characters, 10% feature Asian heritage characters, 7% Latinx, 7% unspecified but comes across as Black, Indigenous, or other person of color. And then less than 3% for Indigenous kids, Pacific Islanders, and Arab kids altogether. Less than 3% for all three of those groups together. And only 5% feature a character with a disability, either visible or invisible. So neurodivergence like autism or Down syndrome or a wheelchair or a hearing helper, whatever it might be. Only 5% featured a character with a disability of any kind. So what can we do about it? Because that's really why we're here. And I know that I'm preaching to the choir a little bit. I know that you all are the people who want to do something or you wouldn't be on this call. But I know that not all of our clubs are full of the people like us who are the wanting to do people. So I'm going to talk about how we can all together get together and do this. So the first thing I want to talk about is if you're having a book drive, if you're setting up a free book fair, just picking books to read with kids, I urge you to think about the kids. If you're the one picking the books, it's okay to include a few of your old favorites like Harold and the Purple Crayon or Alexander and the Terrible, Horrible, No Good, Very Bad Day. We've all seen those for lots of years. But again, with looking at those gaps in literacy, you may want to also think about books like these, like Stacy's Remarkable Books, just by Stacey Abrams, talking about her childhood and her love of books as a kid. Wherever you go, Alexandra Penfold is really great. She writes a lot of books that are just really basic. They're for the youngest of our kids, and always are really good at showing lots of different kids in different life situations. And then if you are reading with a kid, or if you are providing books for an area that are, a lot of the kids have Spanish-speaking parents, you may also consider looking more deeply into bilingual books, because if you can give a kid an English book, that's great, and that will help them in school. But if you can give them something bilingual, that also gives them something they can take home and share with family in a different way than they can share the English only book. It creates a different moment at home. So just wanted to point out those options. So I am not going to ask you to raise hands or to shout out your own reasons, but what's holding up your club? Why is your club not participating in literacy projects? Big thing we always hear, everybody's busy, especially during the school day, right? Well, fortunately, donations are certainly something that can be made. Fundraisers, just like anything else, can be diverted to literacy programs instead of something else. And there's a lot of little things that can be done in off hours or at meetings. The Kiwanis Club of DC partners with Everybody Wins DC, which is a literacy program that part of what they do is give out books to the kids across the area. And at the meetings, the Kiwanis members write little notes saying, I really hope you enjoy this book, or a book is an adventure, have a great time, or those types of just silly little something, signed DC Kiwanis Club, signed a Kiwanian who cares about you, signed those types of things. And then those little notes end up in those books that get given out to all those kids. So each of those kids not only gets a book, they also get a little handwritten note knowing that some adult that they've never even met cares enough to write them something, hoping that they are able to enjoy this book. So there are a lot of things that can be done outside of school hours, outside of after school programs, can be really hands off in a lot of ways, but can still participate and help and show kids that we care. The next excuse we often hear is, we don't want to admit it, but we're a little bit intimidated about reading to kids. And that is a thing that I can help you with. Do you need reading out loud lessons? I have a program for that. I am happy to Zoom into your Kiwanis Club, unless you're right close, in which case I am happy to come to your Kiwanis Club and talk about how to read out loud to kids. But really, most of what people need to get more comfortable with reading to kids is simply the permission to not be perfect, the permission to engage with the kids and not be obsessed with finishing the book. It's okay if you don't finish the book. If you have a great moment with a kid talking about reading, getting that kid involved and wanting to be a part of the book, that's what matters. So having fun is the number one thing. But also I would like to point out, and I'll show you kind of how it happens later when I read the book, but the best thing about picture books is it has pictures, which means that you can have that kid looking at the pictures while you are in your head reading the text, so that when you say it out loud, you've already practiced it. So picture books are really great for that. But again, if that is something that's holding you up, don't let it hold you up. There are a lot of other things you can do, but there's also a lot you can do to be less intimidated about that. The biggest reason that clubs don't do something new is that we don't know how, or we don't know where to start. Well, I would like to tell you all that Kiwanis International has fixed that for you, so you don't have that reason anymore. At the bottom of the screen, you'll see two links. And I will make sure that Sue I've got this presentation put together in a handout that can go out as well in a PDF. So everything I have on here will have the appropriate links that you can just click. But at the bottom, there's the Kiwanis PDF about how to make your club a single emphasis literacy club. And it has all of the great how-tos to start all kinds of different literacy programs, literacy focused programs. And then we'll talk a little bit more about reading is fundamental in a minute, but they have partnered with Kiwanis International. And so they have a whole page dedicated to Kiwanis on their website with what they can help partner with you to do. So we don't know how, we don't know where to start, no longer an excuse. We can't sustain a program on our own, or we don't have the funding for a big project. If you got on early, you heard Sue talk about book vending machines, which can be, you know, $9,000 to start up. Well, good news is you don't have to do it alone. You don't have to be the only ones who care for it. You don't have to be the only ones funding something to make sure it's happening in your community. And I'll talk about that a little bit more on this next slide. Do we need to reinvent the wheel, everybody? Do we? We do not need to reinvent the wheel. So Kiwanis already partners with Reading is Fundamental. So on that page that I had that link for you, they already have opportunities for you to volunteer as readers in their program that they already have, organize book drive alongside them where they know how to do it and they will plug you in. Access to literacy resources, so they have the resources that you can be the go-between and make sure that your schools or after-school programs, whatnot, have those. They already have plans for motivational literacy activities. They've got ideas already for you there. They have a way that you can order books through them, so you don't have to do the picking, you don't have to do the thinking. You can say, Reading is Fundamental, I want to have this many books. What can we do? And they will help you with that. And then the last thing is you can always fundraise for them, and they are going to be doing all of this work, and you can feel good knowing that your money is going to a good place. I also know that individual clubs already partner with things like Little Free Libraries, Dolly Parton's Imagination Library, the Dictionary Project, their local libraries, local schools, local PTOs, local literacy organizations. Like I said, the Kiwanis Club of DC partners with Everybody Wins. And so if you would, in the chat, if your club already works with a more local, or your club has their favorite organization, type it in the chat so that other folks know who you're working with, and maybe that'll spark some idea for somebody else too. Now, if you are one of those clubs that has so much energy and so many people who want to do things and a huge foundation and everything else, I'd like to just say that 61% of low-income homes have 0 books in them, 0. And 2/3 of the achievement gap between higher and lower income youth can be explained by unequal access to books. So if you want to go above and beyond, help close the gap. Offer books without price, without hurdles, ways that allow for choice and autonomy and ownership. Because like I said, kids like to see themselves. Kids are going to be more excited about a book that they have been able to pick themselves. And those of you who have worked with free book fairs or book vending machines, you know how excited those kids get when you say you get to pick your own book. Their eyes light up, they get so excited. And if you're excited about it, you're going to read it more. You're going to read it right now, this moment, before you even get home, you're going to start reading that book. So choice and autonomy are definitely a huge piece of getting that excitement that allows for that growth in literacy. So some of those ways to do that are free book fairs. Like I said, we'll talk about that again in a little bit. Free libraries, whether they're associated with Little Free Library, or if you just have a spot near a school that you know you can put up a little hut that you can make sure is always stocked with books. You can create other little spaces somewhere in a school or in the community center that you can make sure always has something, but you do that as one of those above and beyond things because it takes someone's time. Hopefully it rotates through the club and it's not always the same person, to go and check on the space, make sure that other people haven't left trash there, make sure that it's weatherproof if it's something that's outside, and make sure that books from your club are always there. Books on the street is something that you may have seen if you are on social media or on YouTube very much. There's a movement of folks doing, it's kind of like a free book fair. They'll just take a table into a community that is very underserved and just have a table out like a lemonade stand, and it'll say free books, and kids are able to come up and just pick a book. You can put a limit on it if you only have so many books to give, but having that come to the community that needs it most is one way to ensure that the community that needs it most receives those things. There are a lot of groups everywhere we live. There's a group somewhere here, there, or wherever has a bookmobile. That also would work. Something that travels to the need is definitely a great way to do things. So if there is a bookmobile in your area, contact them. Say, hey, we want to help out. Can we volunteer? Can we help buy books? See if you can partner with them. And then lastly, I wanted to talk about the book vending machines. Book vending machines are fun. They're a novelty, which makes it that much more exciting. And I love the idea, as long as the books are free and as long as there aren't other reward type hurdles for the kids to get the books. Books as rewards for good behavior or high achievement can actually widen this gap that we're talking about, because behavioral or achievement issues often are symptoms of being generally underserved or misunderstood, having issues at home, undiagnosed issues, being hungry. So those more often affect the kids who already are part of this literacy statistic. So make sure that you are creating that equal access space for those kids. And it is very easy to find out how many of the kids in your school district are on the free school lunch program. That's public information. Whether or not you have poverty numbers, whether or not you have numbers that affect children, one of the ways you can find some of those numbers is that free school lunch program number. So that's a way to kind of gauge the level of poverty that you're working with in your local school. If you are in a really great area that has really schools that are really doing well, schools that have plenty of money, schools that have PTOs that have plenty of money, look for the neighboring school district. See who doesn't. Help those kids, because they're not being helped by somebody else. So other potential partners, like I said, your local PTO, the after school programs that are already there. There are usually after school programs for underserved kids. So partnering with them makes sure that those kids get that little extra boost that they might need. Community centers, summer school programming. Again, there's a lot of the summer school programs that are there because the kids need somewhere to go in summer because mom and dad are both working, or honestly because they need lunch. So having free books out on Wednesdays at the community lunch that's offered, one way to do things over the summer. Chamber of Commerce is always a good way to go as well. They always have a connection into whatever summer events or festivals or whatever are happening in your town. So maybe that's a place you'd want to have a cute little book stand. And then preschools. Remember that number from the very beginning about kids going into kindergarten unprepared. They don't know their letters. They don't know their numbers. So if we can start with the preschoolers, that already gives them that help. So things like Head Start programs where the underserved kids are getting preschool are a great place to partner as well. Whoop. And I don't know what just happened. Oh, I clicked on a link. Hold on. There we go. more organizations that are national so that you can plug into them no matter where you're from. They may already be serving your area, so you, again, don't need to reinvent the wheel. You can insert yourselves into their programming. Reading Partners has been around since the 60s. That was a program instated by the government when they noticed that literacy statistics were starting to decline. And so that has been around a long time. They're in a lot of schools across the country. Save the Children has a specific literacy program. Every Child a Reader, also a national program that started a couple of decades ago, again, with the just making sure that every kid gets a book. Room to Read, also the same kind of idea, and Read USA also has literacy programs, as well as they do free book fairs and things like that as well. Talk about them again in a second here. So if you are interested in this idea of a free book fair, but you say, I don't know that I am ready to, our club is ready to embark on this on their own. Reading is Fundamental has suggestions on how to do free book fairs. They may even help you do the free book fair with some sort of guidance. Story Bridge, again, all of these things will have links in the PDF that you're going to get. Story Bridge is also a group that focuses mostly on free book fairs. Read USA, again, free book fairs. And then if you want to think outside the box a little bit, there is a company called Kind Cotton. I usually am wearing or holding something of theirs, but they do reading and teaching and social justice based t-shirts and sweatshirts and stickers and bags and whatever. And for each piece that you buy, they donate a book to a kid. And so they even have a program where your club can just raise enough money to say, I want them to do a book fair somewhere. Here is the money. And that's something that they can do for you as well. Or they may be more than willing to aid you in and guiding you into doing that as well, because they're a small company that really cares about getting books into the hands of kids. And then I've got one last link on this one. If you are interested in doing the book fair and you think maybe we can do it ourselves, there's some really good tips and the reasons why on around the hashtag #TrueBookFair, because it makes the book fair fair. That is one of the things that is being reported about a lot by teachers, is how unfair the Scholastic or whoever else book fairs tend to be, because kids bring in their pocket money and not every kid has pocket money. So some kid gets to take home a whole series and another kid gets to go and look and they can't buy anything. Or some of the book fairs, they get excused from a certain class, but that one kid really needs that class, so they don't get to go. Those types of things happen. Luckily, Scholastic has now created a program where you can donate to a fund where teachers can make sure that kids get a little bit of money to spend at the book fair if they know they need it. But having a free book fair where everyone can have something just takes all of that out of it. I'd also like to remind you, Sue was saying earlier with the book vending machines, all of these books can also have Kiwanis stickers in them. All of these books can have a little note from your Kiwanis Club that says, Kiwanis cares about you. Enjoy this book. Once they see that K enough times, you may end up with a K-Kids. You may end up with a Builders Club, because you'll end up with such a relationship with those kids in that school that you will be able to really get more involved with that school and those kids. Now, I did not talk very much about, Sue did introduce me as the founder of Teaching Cultural Compassion. And teachingculturalcompassion.com or .org. Either one will get you there. If you want little recommendations, if you are looking for a specific something in a book, if you want to read some reviews, that is what I'm doing on that website most of the time. There is a database of over 2,600 books that I have read and have personally curated to say these do offer positive messages. And so you can dig through that database. It's searchable by the age of kid that you're working with, the ethnicity of the main character, other hot topics like nature or girls in STEM or things like that. If you want to narrow it by the theme of the book, you can do that there as well. I also offer programs for Kiwanis and other kinds of consultation. If you want to talk to me about, we are thinking about this kind of literacy program, who do we talk to? There is my email address. I am always happy to help lead you to the right direction, chat with you about where you all think you might be going and help you with whatever that next step is. Or honestly, if you're just looking for a really good book recommendation, like I said, I've read all 2,600 plus of those books. A lot of them live in my head, and I am more than happy to give you book recommendations off the top of my head if that is also something that you would like or need. And then I wanted to make sure I left lots of time for questions, and then also the book at the end once we're done recording. So I just want to open the floor, and I want to make sure that you all get an opportunity to ask questions, or if there is a national partner that your club works with that I didn't name, please share it. I see the chat has a whole bunch of things in it. I'm going to finally look at that and see what's going on. Refrigerators full of free books, that's excellent. I hadn't heard of something like that, but that's great. The Dictionary Project, always great. Dolly Parton, always great. And the people who pick the Dolly Parton Imagination Library books are top-notch people. They've got really fun things going on there all of the time.
So Kathy has her hand up for us today.
Yes,
Kathy?
go ahead, Kathy.
So I covered my camera because I want you to see the picture. That's a refrigerator that was destined for the dump. And so what we did was we took all of the Freon and whatever else out of it. We painted it, and the kids from the local elementary school came down and put their handprints on it. And then the books that go in it have a terrific kids sticker. We had another refrigerator that got dropped off on my back porch. So the Circle K kids painted that one, and we're waiting to place that one at the one that you see here is right outside my house. The one that we're going to place at a place called the Legion Oasis, which is housing here, a housing area. And the Circle K does a tutoring project out there. So we're going to put that refrigerator in out there so that we can put books in that refrigerator too. So it solves two problems. It takes care of not having a free little library, no big deal, right? But it also eliminates all of that stuff that would have gone to the dump.
Mm-hmm.
Those refrigerate, like the Freon went to the Freon company, the company that came and took it out, and the refrigerators aren't at the dump. They're full of books here in town. So it kind of addresses a couple of things that, it wasn't intended as a recycling project. It became one when people started dropping off refrigerators, but
And it helps with the weatherproofing too. If it's still got a relatively okay seal, then that helps with that. So yeah, there's all kinds of good things.
We took the seals off because you actually can't leave them out with the seal on it. Right. So there's a little latch hook on the side of it, but where we put the books on the shelf is far enough back that, it snows here, 11 out of 12 months of the year. So I go out and check it occasionally, and sometimes the kids will leave the door open, or it'll fall open or something, and a book will fall out. I'll just pick those books up. And then I dry them out. And one of our guys is he's he does asbestos removal. So he'll take them, he'll demold them, and then we drop them off at the rescue mission, because they have a bunch of kids at the shelter who, don't have books, and they can get a book. So there you go.
Did any of those refrigerators come with food or beverages when they were dropped off?
They don't come with food or beverages, but you know what I do in the summertime, especially, is I'll put, fruit snacks, or I put little tiny bottles of water. I'll freeze them and then put them out there, because believe it or not, it does get to 90 or 100 degrees in Montana. And not only will the kids stop and grab a bottle of water, but occasionally the mail carrier or the UPS driver or somebody like that. So it's actually turned out to be a really great community resource.
Right.
Unintentionally.
That is awesome.
I had a neighbor who used to give me $50 a month to go buy stuff to put in it. So
very good. So there's a question in the chat. Do you do other things like designing Sunday school lessons for churches on your book list?
I do. As you may have heard at the beginning, I am Reverend Tura, and you see that on my email too, I guess. So I do also consult with churches. I design Sunday school lessons and other faith-based things if you are a person of faith who's looking for something like that. I also do programming with libraries and teachers and things like that, if that is another group that you intersect with as well. And Daryl's got his hand up. Make sure you unmute, Daryl.
I was trying. So I just wanted to say a couple things down here in Georgia. I read to kids Monday through Friday on Facebook Live. Costs nothing to do that. I have kids all over the world that come listen to me read. I don't know most of them, and it's fun. I've done it for 4 years now. About 2,200 books so far, having a blast with it. The other thing, one of my clubs, what we do, our big project each year is we bought them all this year, about 1,500 books, and we go to 3 different elementary schools. We target K through 2nd grade because we're trying to get them up to 3rd grade reading level. And the schools pick out 20 students, specific students, and each of those students will get a basket with 24 individually wrapped books and a Christmas present, so that in December they can open a book every day until Christmas, when they open their Christmas present. Of course, most of the books are unwrapped long before Christmas, but that was what they're given for. That's what we ask them to do, and they're loving it.
That is very cool. Linda, you've got your hand up.
Linda?
Yes, thank you. Tura, I want to ask you to think way back and tell us your foundation in the love of books and reading.
Way back, I will never forget I've forgotten the name of lots of my elementary school teachers, but I can tell you that Marilyn Butcher was the children's librarian at the public library in Charles City, Iowa. And she was so loving and so excited about books that any one of us who walked in there couldn't help but be excited about books. And so I know my sister was a junior librarian. We called them library cards. And at that point, so I would go with her and help her shelve things along with the actual people who were shelving. But I also got this love for diverse books. Like I said, I grew up in Iowa, not the most diverse spot in the world. But I have an amazing mom who is a Spanish teacher who made it very possible for us to find things about other cultures, instilled in us that interest in learning about other cultures. And so I know that I got a more diverse education than a lot of my peers did, because I have an awesome mom who is right there. If you want to wave at Marcia, she's there. I mean, my dad's awesome too, but her Spanish Spanish teacher thing was part of that piece. But I grew up in a house where books were something that were treasured, and I was read to as a very young child. I didn't learn until I was in college that I was dyslexic because I just loved books. I knew they were hard. I had to work a little harder at them than other folks around me, but it didn't stop me. That does, however, make it easier for me to read middle grade novels now than adult novels because the text is just a little bit bigger. And this picture book thing, I love reading them because they're short, they're concise. If you need to learn something fast, if you want to learn something about history that you know you didn't learn in school, find a picture book about it. There usually is a picture book about it, especially biographies. I have learned more about Shirley Chisholm and Lady Bird Johnson and any plethora of other folks that I had never heard of otherwise because of picture books. And I learned like a John Meacham worth amount of information about them in a 5-minute picture book. So I highly recommend check out the picture book section of your local library.
And Tura, that's probably why I asked you that question and that look back, because as you shared, and what we need to realize is there are so many children out there who are not raised with that access to the ability to obtain or even know the beauty and the value of books. And I think what you're bringing is phenomenal. And I want to say thanks to your parents too.
And now I work at a library, and I can't tell you how shocked kids, teens are when I tell them the library card is free. It opens a whole world, and it's free. So work with your local libraries too. They are there, they want to reach more of the community, and if you can get more of the community to them, they'll be ecstatic.
Kathy's with us and she has her hand up. Kathy?
Yes.
I just want to relay a little bit about what our club is doing in regards to literacy. Washtenaw County has kicked off a Washtenaw Literacy Coalition about a month and a half ago, and we are one of the partners. Our thrift store gets donations of hundreds of books every single week. We're only open for 10 hours. We only take donations in for 4 hours, and we still get hundreds and hundreds of books. So about 2 months ago, actually in March, we sorted 800 almost perfectly new books that were donated to us by area residents. And we took those 800 books over to Erickson Elementary School in Ypsilanti. We researched, and the schools in our city, Ann Arbor, they're the very lowest ones. The comprehensions levels were at about 50, 60, 70, 80, 90%. We looked over at Ypsilanti. There were 2 schools that were below 5% comprehension at the 3rd grade levels, which means that those kids were reading picture books with 2 words on a page, and they were identifying the words with the picture, not phonetically sounding out the words. So we took 800 books over to Erickson Elementary School, and in May we'll take another 800 books over to homeschool. And the second part of our initiative is recruiting tutors. And I'm one of them, actually. And one of my experiences 2 weeks ago was with my little guy named AJ. He's in the 2nd grade. He just read his first sentence of 5 words. And I tell you what, I've never seen anybody so happy and so proud of his ability to read those 5 words, that 5-word sentence. To make a long story short, If we can get one person to tutor one child for 1 hour per week, that will make a huge difference. Our charge in Washington County is to get every second grader to be reading at grade level by the time that they get to be in the fifth grade. It's an ambitious goal, but between giving them the resources, we give them free books that are practically brand new, and a lot of them are. And they can take those home. They're theirs to keep forever and ever. They can trade them or do whatever they want with them. But we'll be doing a backpack project this summer with both of those schools, and we hope to impact those schools to get to improve that reading comprehension level at the third grade, because no child should be branded by their reading comprehension when they're only 9 years old. If they're taught, if they can think that I can do this, I can learn to read, that will change their whole aspect on their life, their education. It goes all the way down the line. So it's a tremendous project that we've started on, and we hope to get other clubs to partner with us on that.
That's
awesome, great, Kathy.
Kathy.
Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah. And I wanted to point out what part of what Kathy's saying and part of what Linda was saying. I am lucky enough to have two parents who went to college, but 54% of American adults read at or below a sixth grade level. So if your parent is only reading at a sixth grade level, you're not getting help from them at home necessarily. And you probably don't have the same access or excitement for books that I grew up with. So that's another just really hard statistic to think about, but it definitely affects the kids.
And as you mentioned earlier, with a couple of those books that you referenced, we hear that all the time, that most of the students that we're giving books to are using those, to help mom and dad learn to read. We have an elementary school here in town that I think has 37 different nationalities in it. So the kids that are getting those books are using that to help mom and dad learn how to read. And they may only be, kindergarten through 4th or 5th grade, but so they're excited to have those books because they can help mom and dad, and they may not, they may be the picture books, they may be the early readers, but that's how mom and dad are learning to read.
And bilingual books are not just Spanish and English, by the way. There are bilingual books in Chinese and English, and Korean and English, and Arabic and English. And there are a plethora of bilingual books in languages that you have never heard of, and all of the languages you have. So keep an eye out for those, especially if you, like Sue, are in an area that there's a lot of immigrants from all over the place. Think about those bilingual books when you're working with those kids too.
Any other questions? So Tura, I'm wondering whether we should, we just did one in Romanian and English. Great, Daryl, that's good. So they're out there. I'm wondering whether we should invite you back to do your reading and do your read out loud program at the same time.
We certainly can.
That way you'll have time to do that at the same time. I think that would be a great program we can put out there about how to read out loud.
Yeah.
Because you're right. There are people that, if you give them something to read, there is that anxiousness that, are the kids smarter than me, right? What are they going to say if I mispronounce a word? I mean, everything goes through your mind.
We're still going to get that tonight, right?
Well, if there's no more questions, I'm going to go ahead and turn off our recording so that Tura can read her book. I will say thank you to everybody that's joined us tonight. Don't click off. I'm just going to turn off the recording, but I want to make sure that we get to that. So thank you, Tura, for being with us tonight. And we are no longer recording.